It's the true crime grapevine all the time. I don't really have a song. That's all I have. Hi guys, true crime fans. It is me, Patty Lee, and this is the True Crime Grapevine. What does that mean? Well, if you're new here, you might have heard a grapevine is like where you hear what everybody's saying, and there's always that person you want to sit right next to so they can tell you everything that everybody else is saying and you can catch up on the tea. That is what I'm doing here for True Crime. One of my favorite channels, and I always tell you my main squeezes, like any good connoisseur of the grape would tell you, is Mel. Hi Mel. Best source. Highly recommend. Mel said that not a lot of YouTubers watch YouTube because they're too busy looking up about true crime. Well, I would be the exception to that rule. Why? Well, this channel was designed to share with you what I was sharing with my sister on our walks, which was everything I heard on YouTube. I would be like, oh my God, and there's this case, and there's that case, and you wouldn't believe this, and this person is saying this, but these people are ex-law enforcement, and they're saying this, but then there's this great person who does these lives and looks up everything about it, and he says this. That's what I tell you. So basically, I spent my whole week watching YouTube and true crime, which I was doing anyways, while I was doing my dissertation work in educational psychology, which is about learning about human development, especially cognition and how people know things and their motivations. So I was already really interested in motivations, and after the pandemic and such, I had passed all my coursework, which means I'm all but dissertation, but I didn't finish writing the dissertation. No, instead, I started a YouTube channel for true crime novel. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you everything that I listen to all week so that my sister no longer has to listen to me tell her. What are you going to get? Well, we have, since last time I spoke, so this is our 36th episode. It covers November 12th from last Friday to this Friday. So this time I got in exactly a week, which is sort of a miracle. Sometimes it's 10 days, but I always pick up where I left off. So if you watch my episodes, you will always be caught up on what has happened in true crime. Also, I sometimes put out a full episode, but they can be up to hours long. This would be like almost 3 hours long, I think. Sorry. So my editor, who happens to be a broadcasting major and one of my children, she is doing them in sections because some of them are going to be kind of very long. So what do we have in this episode? Oh, also, I used to pair every single case with a drink. Now, this week's episode has 13 cases. As you can imagine, after 2 or 3 episodes of getting ill, because I was drinking different drinks with every case, I decided to just theme with each episode. So what are we drinking this episode? It is November. I am going to my sister's, the one that I used to tell all my true crime to until she said, you need to make a true crime show. I'm the pie girl. I'm the person who brings all the desserts, and I do make an apple pie. So this week I got this apple pie wine. If you can see it, that's our unofficial sponsor of episode 36. All right, so yeah, I got a white, one of my white glasses. Oh good, it is a white. I wasn't even sure. All right, let's pour one out for all the victims of crime, all the hard work that law enforcement does, all the hard work that our journalists do, all the very hard work that our YouTubers do, for the victims and their families, and let's say a prayer or good vibes or whatever for all, the trolls and the crazy people who go after innocent people because their lives are difficult. Anyways, cheers. And to your holiday coming up. All right, let's taste it. What? Okay, first of all, I should have just done the bouquet. It literally smells like apples, but when you taste it, it has a cinnamony, it's definitely appley, but it has a cinnamon, like, leaves a little cinnamon after taste on your throat. I think it's supposed to aftertaste, but it finishes with a spicy cinnamon. That's what you're supposed to say, finishes. Yeah, ooh, it's fab. Highly recommend for your dessert tray along with apple pie. Have some apple pie. All right, so what are we gonna have this episode? Here, I'm gonna give you a mouche bouche, which is like an appetizer for what the show will be. All right, we are gonna have, you betcha, our new cases first, which include the Idaho Moscow murders. It's Moscow, not Moscow. It's not Russia. It's Moscow, long O. Moscow murders. That's the four. It's what everybody's talking about. So I'm going to tell you what everybody's saying, and that is going to take half an hour by itself. We're going to talk about the unfortunate mass shooting at the University of Virginia. It has some commonalities with other mass shootings, and it's just really, it's a waste. All the victims are a waste. It is horrible for the perpetrator. It's just really sad. We'll be talking, our third new case is what I call my category of murdered moms or over my dead body cases. Yeah, it's when people are divorcing and somebody literally is going to take you with them over there, your dead body. So this is the case about Rachel Castillo, a psychology major, not unlike myself, much younger by half than myself, 25. A really sad case. Unfortunately, if you've watched our true crime channel here or other true crime channels, or maybe you're just a human that's been on this earth for at least 20 years, you've heard this story before. It's so awful. Now, our updates. Our updates of our investigations of crimes we've spoke about before. We have an update, I think, we'll talk about this. The Micheal Vaughn case in Fruitland, Idaho. Another Idaho case, and it's really sad. We'll talk about it, and it also has some commonalities, I believe, with the Jean Bonnet case. We'll get to that. We have an update on what is going on with the Delphi murder investigation of Libby and Abby in Delphi, Indiana, and the suspect that was arrested. Really interesting. I have a really good YouTube channel lawyer who you definitely want to check out his series on the Delphi case. You definitely do. That will be our fifth case. Our sixth case is there has been a manner of death, cause of death, on the Debbie Collier case, which you're not going to believe because I certainly don't believe it. But we'll talk about it. There's an update. We have some updates on, isn't he competent? We've had a couple of people that had competency issues that are awaiting trial. So if you're incompetent, one is in Indiana, conservative, but not that conservative. In Idaho, we have the Vallow-Daybell case, but in Nevada, we have the Troy driver who is the suspected alleged killer of Naomi Irion, another beautiful 18, 19-year-old girl. She was just in the prime of her life. Very sad. Kind of like the Idaho murders. It's just horrible. Then we also have an update on Chad Daybell. And sometimes it's just till death do you part. We'll catch up on them. After talking about the Vallow-Daybell case, we'll be talking about also a quick update on the Cassie Carlie suspected killer, her baby daddy, Marcus Spanevelo. Thank goodness he didn't leave the country because he's from Brazil and there's no extradition back for that. Since he's a national, he wouldn't be able to be extradited. They'd let him go. He is having some paperwork that has to be done. Slow as molasses, I'll tell you all about it. Now, the people that are in active trials, we have a couple of these. We have an update. Well, Alex Murdaugh is not in trial yet, but one of his co-conspirators, Russell Lafayette, is in trial, and things are coming out. We will talk about that, and the stuff that's coming out is affecting things that Alec is doing, his lawyers are doing to get ready for his trial. We have the George Wagner trial updates, and I'm going to give you the sources on some of these. I can't explain everything to you. I have a playlist on most of them, so if you really wanted to, you could go back and find them, but I will tell you, True Lights and Alibis, Gigi, she has got this locked down with help from Biggie, and it's like Angie and Levette Levy from oh my goodness, one of the crime channels, like the network ones. Angela Levy, she's really great. They're all on it. I will tell you about what they're saying and where to find more information. And then we have a sentencing that everybody's been waiting for, or at least been waiting for it to get over, which is the Gerald Brooks. He was representing himself pro se in the Christmas parade massacre up in Wisconsin, and another case that is similar to his or not, we'll talk about it, that happened this week in California, in Los Angeles, to some recruits, also a car involved. And then we'll finish with our 13th case, which is good news for Gabby Petito's family. We'll talk about that and which case that is. So raise your glasses again. This is going to be a long one. If you're drinking along, I don't know, pick your word. Don't make it so, because that's one of my filler words and you will be wasted. So, true crime fans, that smells fabulous, and that cinnamon finish, cannot say enough about it. All right, we're going to start with our first case, and it is, a big one. Okay, this is the Idaho 4, or the Moscow murders. Again, not Moscow, that's in Russia. This is in Idaho, northern Idaho, in the Panhandle, and it's Moscow. It's really close, I guess, to eastern, not far from eastern Washington. What? Did I mention I'm the dyslexic detective? Oh, I am. I'm your armchair dyslexic detective, and you will see dyslexia helps me see sort of outside the box ideas, I think, and it helps me be more creative. It also sometimes makes my words do this. You will see. And this does not always help. Again, we're drinking apple pie wine. Tastes great. All right. So last week, Saturday night, I have kids this very same age. There were 5 girls who lived in a house and a boyfriend. And they all went out. As far as I know, everybody went out, but we know specifically 2 of the girls, Kaylee and Madison, went out, to the local bars. I think it was called Corner Club was one bar that they were seeing. I'm sure they did, dancing, maybe some karaoke, what kids do, right? And then afterwards, they went to this food truck. The food truck had a Twitch account that was turned on and running the whole time, which is great because we have photographic evidence of exactly what was happening then. 2 of the roommates, we don't know where Delaney and Bethany, we don't know where they were. That they are survivors, and the police are not saying anything about them. The other 2 were a couple, Xana and Ethan. And Xana and Ethan went to a party at the Sigma Chi house. And we only know for that they were there for specifically an hour. And then it says they were home at 1:45. That's when the girls arrived, about at 1:45-ish. So it's unclear where they were in the intervening time period. It didn't say they went home. The time period put out by the Moscow police did not say that. So you might think, oh my gosh, so somebody heard. So let me just tell you. Saturday night they go out. They're all home, and the other 2 are already home. 1:45, everybody's in. We don't know what happens, but it is now stated officially by law enforcement that at between 3 and 4 a.m. Multiple stabbings were done on 4 of the residents, and they were unalived, the big M. Police have not said where in the house the individuals exactly were. They haven't really said anything. The first stories coming out Sunday morning that I saw on Twitter were reports that I don't think they said, I think they may have said passerby, or an individual called the police, not 911, but I don't, so that is not clear either if it was actually they called 911 or campus police or the city police, but they called law enforcement to say there was an unconscious body and they needed somebody to come check. Well, there's not an unconscious body. There were 4 murdered bodies inside this home. The door, this is another thing. It was reported by law enforcement officially. It was open. And people are like, so does that mean it was like not locked? Does that mean it was open? Unclear. Some now are saying it was wide open. Unclear. And carnage. Carnage to the point where the coroner said, it was the most gruesome scene she had been to. I mean, she's Idaho, Moscow, Idaho is about 25,000 people. 11,000, so about half, are, including staff, it would be half, are university related. So it is definitely a smaller college town. I think there are 7 schools I wrote it down. It's not a huge, like the school system from like kindergarten, pre-K, all the way through high school, 7 buildings. So if you've been into even any smaller towns, but like larger suburbs, not larger, even small suburbs of medium-sized towns, like where I live, there's 7 sometimes elementary schools that feed into like 1 or 2 high schools. So this is small, and it's a college town. I tell you this because it has to do with a lot of things. One, it has to do with the law enforcement. People are like, oh, the FBI have gotten involved, so it must mean something really weird because, we know the FBI only does like federal across lines crime. Well, actually, the FBI, and Idaho doesn't have its own FBI actual office in Idaho. Salt Lake City is the one I believe they are coming from, unless a Washington one is involved. But so Idaho doesn't have its own FBI, but an FBI team comes when a smaller town, such as a small college town that doesn't have much crime at all, gets overwhelmed. So most of their crime is like break-ins, when students steal things, some drunk and disorderly, as one can imagine in a college town. This is a safe place to live. It is a small community with mostly college students. So their law enforcement right away don't say a lot. In fact, Sunday, besides the reports that there were 4 students found dead in a house, unresponsive, that there was a call for an unconscious person, that we didn't hear much. And then I believe it was Monday or late Sunday, the mayor, so if you know anything about small towns, mayors sometimes are very concerned with how people see your town. They're worried about the economy, any tourism, making sure that people keep their kids in school, especially if the whole college runs based on students. You don't want to discourage them. I mean, the college is the University of Idaho, but the city is the college. The mayor does not want this to be a crazy, oh my gosh, there's a serial killer on the run, so he gets on the news and goes the other way. And I understand. Mayors are politicians, they run for office, and basically they do streets, making sure people's taxes get them services, like your streets are cleaned and, snow's removed, there's no potholes, and you want the lights to work, and you want you want it to be safe, you want the police to come when you need it to keep order, and you want good business. You want it to have businesses that are flourishing. You want the mayor and city council to bring in the businesses that you as the people in the town want. Not, so, but it is very much like, hey, it's a great place, they're cheerleaders. It's a great place to live. Come bring your business. We are the best. They're all the best small town communities ever, right? Bring your families, bring your kids, bring your money. All right. So it is not unusual that he would get on the news and say, oh, this looks like a targeted thing. And we locked down campus for an hour, but then we did, but then it was clear this was targeted, it was personal, and it is not going to, it was and I kid you not, I'm going to need a drink for this. He called it a one-off. A one-off. Okay, I'm not going to freak out or anything, but can you imagine if your friends are dead? Your child, your students, and you go, yeah, it was a one-off. And here's what the great mayor, non-detective, non-law enforcement said. Well, he thought it was a one-off because, nobody else was hurt in the neighboring houses and nothing else had happened since, Saturday night. So I'm like, dude, 4 people were dead in that one house. Maybe that person was tired. We'll talk about slippage. I'm sure he was a little damaged, or she, themselves, they were damaged. I mean, I'm sure it took a lot out of them. So, no, typically killers don't go from house to house to house. And then oh, I think we need to worry. Dum-dum. Sorry, Mayor. I mean, I know what he was trying to do, but the way he did it was, if you know anything about crime or anything, it was a ridiculous statement to say one-off. I mean, I don't know, Ted Bundy had multiple one-offs till he got to a serial. I mean, first of all, it's not a one-off because it was more than one. It's just so upsetting. So then, again, small town, big problem. It's ramping up. YouTubers are discussing it by Monday, by Tuesday, but it's all over every channel on YouTube. Everybody's getting the scoop. We're repeating the same things. That's another reason why I tell you what everybody else is saying after. Usually, sometimes it's new, but it's been going on a lot, because sometimes your stuff here at first is ridiculous, and by the time you get into it a week or two, you're like, ugh, why do we even think that? So, but they were a little slow on ball about getting out in front of this and saying something. So the police chief has and the police, I guess it was the police department, mostly the chief talking on Wednesday. They had a presser. And he had to basically, now, I don't know if you know about small towns, but the city council and the mayor hire the police chief. They hire everybody who works for the town. So the police chief is usually friends with or friendly with mayors and city council people, but it's their boss. And they're not going to come out and say, look, this idiot obviously doesn't know what he's talking about, and he was trying to front, and this isn't a publicity campaign. You better lock your doors. So he came out and said very politely, look, we don't have the weapon. We don't have a clear subject of interest, a person who did this. We don't have a motive. We don't know why it was done. You're going to have to be careful. We don't know a lot. So we're asking the community to keep your eyes and ears open, to be vigilant, and to lock your doors. Because like many small towns, people don't lock their doors. The other thing that started to come out from students were, they said, yeah, that was a place where one of the places people went. It was right off campus, but really close. People went there all the time. It was fun. It was one of the places people gathered. People had the lock code to that house. there were always people in and out of there, which is a nightmare, right, for forensics and for law enforcement to figure out things. The fact that, okay, so everybody has the lock key code. What? Or many people? Not great. And he admitted they don't know. The biggest news of the whole week was who I call Hoodie Guy. I was watching, Mel was on this the fastest and the most thorough. Hi, Mel. I really like his live streams. He's passionate. He made fun of being like, he's not like overly emotional though, but he cares and he answers people's questions. He has people call in, and oftentimes, now I don't think he's had too many from this time, but sometimes people from the very area will call in. A woman did call in tonight and say, oh, it was like the door wasn't left wide open by like residents because it's like it's very cold there right now. So it helps when people are able to call in and give him information, and then his chat gives information a lot, and he pays attention to it and respects everybody who's talking, even sometimes when it's like off the wall. He still is respectful and considers it. Highly recommended as a main squeeze. Anyways, I would recommend you go watch his lives specifically on this case, because you can see the coverage. Somebody gave him this Twitch food truck video as soon as it was out. He had it like Monday or Tuesday and was commenting on it, and you could very clearly see who I call Hoodie Guy. Now it's claimed, oh, but he was with him at the bars. I think that's just like, oh, he was with him at the truck. Police say they've spoken to him, and he is not a person of interest at this time. And that's what they're saying about everybody. They're not a person of interest at this time. I have heard people on TV programs, so like not YouTube but real television, and the people say the policemen have cleared. I don't think law enforcement, in fact at their presser Wednesday, they said we haven't cleared anybody, but we are going through the process and we don't have any subjects at this time. At this time and cleared are very two different things. The only person I do think that was cleared was one of the girls, I think ex-boyfriends or boyfriends, who was in Boise, which would have been very, like, too far away, I think. Because it was 8 hours until anybody said anything. So on Wednesday, at the very end of that presser, and Wednesday was when we watched the Twitch thing too. So they asked about the guy in the video. At that time, he didn't know. But they asked about, was there anybody else in the house? Again, this is a small town. The reporters in town, somebody had said, look, there's 2 other roommates. Where the hell were they? And to his credit, the police chief, he didn't offer things he didn't want to tell, but he didn't lie if they knew. And he said they are safe. And they said the roommates are safe. Were they there? Yes, they were there at the time of the crime. And I don't know if you've seen that meme where everybody goes, oh, like runs around and screams. That's what it felt like. All of a sudden, the internet went, oh my God, what? There were 2 people at home? And they lived, what? And then, of course, the next answer was, so, were they involved? No, they are not. No. The next day, there was another short presser, I believe, and then the 2 other people have spoken. Somebody else that was a communications person, and then there has been an official conversation with the prosecuting attorney for the city of Moscow. And it seems like at this point, the girls in the home, now this was I'm Patty, just Patty with an I, when I comment below people's videos on YouTube. But on Twitter, I'm Trish Lee. And then, you know me here, Patty Lee. As you can see, all iterations of my name, Patricia. I have been commenting. Okay, number one, do I think it's weird that 2 people were there and didn't hear anything? Number one, the police never said they didn't hear anything. People are, it's very interesting, and in psychology, we know this. There's whole courses taught, and people who learn to con and grift. Isn't it funny? Courses for like how to win and influence people and sell things, as well as con men, all learn to say things in a way that you lead people to believe what you want them to hear without saying it. And then, so you're not really you're not lying, you're just not saying it. It's like saying, these people are not suspects at this time. Okay, well, at this time is doing a heavy lift. That doesn't mean they were cleared 100%. Different. So they didn't say they said they were asleep. Well, they've said everybody was asleep when the crime commenced. So they said, they didn't say they didn't hear anything. What they said was, they are cooperating with police. I think that's how they know it happened between 3 and 4, because I'm pretty sure my favorite death investigators, one has a podcast called Body Bags with his Joseph Scott Morgan. Hi, Joe. Also, the Duty Ron has Barbara Busher as a death investigator. These people talk about how they look at death scenes. And I am telling you, it seems like they are, that the 2 girls that were there could have heard something. So that's the story now is, they thought maybe there was a party going on and they locked their door so that nobody would, like, drunk stumble in, and they went back to bed. Or maybe they really did another, I don't think it was official. I think it was unofficial. It's hard to tell because, like I said, these news stations that are, like, more trusted are repeating things that I think sometimes, like Fox actually wrote something and then somebody repeated it, and I believe it was incorrect about how many times the girls made phone calls to somebody on their phones before they went to bed. One girl was calling, it seemed that she was calling her boyfriend, and there's Jacks, and there's Jakes, and there's 2 Jacks. One is a friend, one is a boyfriend. I mean, Jack and Jake is very popular amongst the 20-something-year-old crowd. But anyways, it seems to me that what was reported, and I'm saying I don't remember if it was the police or if it was a TV station, because it's very hard to know what is accurate and what people think the police said, and then they repeat it, and then it just gets, again, like, it's the grapevine. It's like a phone chain. It gets changed a little bit as it goes on. But they're saying the girls may have been traumatized. That's what I was writing on people's things. I'm thinking, in the Richard Specht case, this is the other thing. So a knife was used. We learned that the next day after Wednesday. I think that was a Thursday. A 7-inch, like, some people call them Bowie knives, but they're like military grade, huge knives. K-bar was another name they used, like a Rambo knife. It's just a huge knife that looks like a military knife. That's what they think was used. At first they were saying it was they were killed by a sharp-edged instrument. I was like, so, like a sword or a knife? So it's this huge knife. I think that, I don't know if you could have slept through that. I think if you heard that, you would be traumatized. Like they're saying, one thing was reported that the girls were traumatized. You would maybe just freak out if your door is locked, hide under your bed, and pray to God until the sun came up that you don't die too. We don't know. So what I was going to tell you about is because he used a knife, he or they, I should say, because we don't know if it's a girl or a guy, because the intruder used a knife, everybody's like, oh, it can't be just one person. It has to be 2. The big question, even from people who I know, like I heard Nancy Grace say it. Who else did I heard say it? Like people who I know are aware of all the true crime history lore from way back. I mean, Nancy Grace knows it all. In 1966, Richard, it's like everybody who studies or cares about true crime and knows about certain cases because they're just like so iconic and burned into people's memory. And Richard Speck is one of them. He was the man who killed all the nurses. It was in 1966, which I hadn't remembered the year. It was in Chicago. And he was drunk and had a knife. And I don't think it wasn't super planned. He got his way into this townhouse, which happened to be a dormitory for nurses. And there were 8 of them in the house at the time, I believe. Maybe there were 5 at home at first, because some came home mid-crime. But he at first separated them and told them to be quiet, and most of them listened. And then what he was doing was taking one at a time. Like he separated them, bound them, then took them out one at a time, unalived them by a nice little across the neck, and which takes care of screaming. Then it's not very loud. Phil, is it Givaldi? That's the coffee. Hi, dyslexic detective. Gimaldi, I think is his last name. He's a co-host on Bill Cannon's Police Off the Cuff. Also mentioned that if you get struck with a sharp object like a knife right in the chest, that you get like a thing called sunken chest, and you can't scream then either because the blood goes right into your lung cavity. Sorry to be graphic. There wasn't probably too much screaming and yelling if people were surprised and woken up out of sleep by a violent attack that right away incapacitated them. It might have just sounded like thumps and stuff. I don't know, but after they did go to the scene, there was blood running down the side of the exterior foundation. They said the murders took place. It was like a house that was built into the hill. And apparently, I thought the girls were on the 3rd floor. I think they were on the 1st floor, which was the walkout part to the parking lot. And it was built like into the hill. So they would have even more isolation from sound. And the laundry room, I believe, was on one side. And there was I think there was 2 bedrooms on each floor because there were 6 bedrooms. I believe those girls were on that floor. Also explaining why they would lock their door. Because if you're on the bottom floor where people might come in a door, you're going to lock your door so they don't try to go to the bathroom in your room or try to have a, make-out session or whatever kids call it these days in your room. So I don't know at what time they locked their doors when they heard partying. Maybe when the people came home around 1:45, maybe. But I'm assuming they heard bumping and thumping when people were being unalived above them, or they saw there might be blood that ran down into their room because it was seeping down on that side, on one of their sides of their rooms. It had to have. And if it was going down on the outside of the wall, I can only imagine that whatever was seeping through, it was harder to get to the outdoor exterior block. I can only imagine what it was doing into the room. But in the 1966 case, he separated them by saying, look, I just want your money. I won't hurt you. Just do as I say. And people fall for that. We know that's bullshit. If we can learn anything from these cases, what can we learn? Scream, shout, run, fight back. And if there's more of you, all go in a separate direction because they can only get one. I mean, hopefully it's not you, but I mean, then somebody else can run and go get help and maybe save you if you get injured. So again, we're not victim blaming, but what can we learn? Number 1, we lock our doors. Number 2, we don't give people our codes. If we're going to have a party, I mean, I guess the day of the party you could, prop your door open, which I don't recommend, but you know what I'm saying? Do not give out your key code to anybody unless you're going to change it right after the party. Do not leave your doors open. They had 2 sliding doors. If you have sliding doors before you go to bed at night, what do? You jam a stick in all the way on the runner. And we don't know exactly if was the person in there before they got home and waited till, and hid and waited till everybody went to sleep. We don't know. All of that's supposition. as to when the person got in, how they got in. All we know is that they got in, and these people seem to be, now again, we get a lot of wishy-washy talk from law enforcement. Well, they seem to be attacked in their sleep. Most of them, were in their bed, so not all. Maybe. Most of them seem to be asleep, but there were defensive wounds, apparently on one we found because a parent said something. So I'm assuming parents might be getting a little bit more information, and then they say things, or families do, and then the police has to confirm or deny. Again, it makes it harder for the police to whatever. But everybody's very insatiable because they want to know, are we safe? What happened? How can we stop this from happening to us? All the reasons why people are interested in true crime. Not to be gruesome, but like, oh my gosh, how do I avoid that happening to my kids? What can I tell them? How does this happen? How do we avoid this in the future? You know, that's the fascinating part. It's how do we stop this so it doesn't happen anymore? What can I know so it doesn't happen to me? These police, you know, I think they're overwhelmed. Now they've got the FBI involved. The FBI were seen there. They were seen tonight, which is Friday night. Is it Friday? It's Saturday. Is it Saturday? It is Saturday today. Hi. I'm just learning my days. They're still working throughout the weekend. Today, I believe they were in there taking pictures with luminol. You could see you could see them in a room where they turn off the lights, and they're wearing the facial mask that you have to wear when you spray all those chemicals, and then you could see them taking pictures in a dark room. That's luminol. And it looked like you could see the glow a little bit. We're going to pour a little bit more of our apple pie wine because I'm getting parched here. So, we know that they're going to try to figure out blood spatter patterns. We know that they're going to test all the blood, and this is what I said about before. You might want to drink for this. Whoever did this, the person, or if there's individuals, they think it's one person. Also, the police do, because they only see evidence of one weapon, that serrated knife. The person would have been covered in blood, even though the big knife had a grip on it. It would have slipped. It would be very slippery, and it's called slippage. And when a knife slips, it kind of like rears back a little bit. So usually anybody who knifes anybody has their hands all cut up as well. So when you cut your hands, you bleed. When you bleed, you leave your DNA. So, not very smart, whoever you are, and there's no cleaning up that mess now. So, it's not like it's a big secret me telling you. Stupid. So, they will likely get DNA. So, the FBI's there. I believe it was reported by, her name is... Chaney. She was reporting, it was a specific, she had tweeted about it, it was a specific forensic group of the FBI. So everybody's taking this very seriously, because we don't know, is this a Bundy? Is this a Spectre? Or is it a person who had, I hate to say an axe to grind. That's a horrible thing because it was a knife. But is it somebody who was targeting one of the people? Although, why kill everybody? It's very unclear. So that is very scary for the community. We've lost 4 beautiful kids. Their names, just let me tell you. And hopefully I'll have a picture up for you. Ethan Chapin was 20. He was dating Zana Kernodle, who was also 20. And Ethan was a Sigma Chi, and I've heard people. If you're not part of the Greek system, it's really hard to say these words. They don't. It's Greek because it's Greek life, so it's pronounced differently sometimes. So Sigma Chi was Ethan's fraternity. Zana was a Pi Phi. Which is Pi Beta Phi, but in the Greek community you just say Pi Phis, which they're known for being beautiful girls. And these girls were beautiful. Madison Mogan, she was also a Pi Beta Phi or Pi Phi. She was 20. She was the really very blonde girl that you can see in the food truck video. And then Kaylee Goncalves. And Kaylee Goncalves, she's 21. Her sister is really, she was the one, I guess, who found the Twitch video. She's looking at all ring, like she is being a real detective herself, which is pretty amazing. Kaylee is an Alpha Phi. I am an Alpha Phi. So it would be sad no matter who these kids were, but it's horrible that she is in the same sorority that I was in. That's awful. So I don't want to just talk about the crime without recognizing that these were, to all accounts, very accomplished, beautiful, very friendly individuals. Ethan was one of 3 triplets. He was a triplet. His family, his siblings, devastated. They were very close. They all went to school. He was actually just staying over at, it was the weekend with the Xana, his girlfriend. He lived in the Sigma Chi house. So, I mean, his siblings lived on campus. These were regular 20, 21-year-old kids. We don't know. The things that we don't know, is probably part of the investigation. So what we don't know, besides who did it, we do know now what they used. We don't know why they did it. We don't know how they got in. We just know a door was left when they left. The 911 call is still causing lots of confusion because who was it? So as I see it, we have 3 possibilities. One is that it came in at 11:30 or right before noonish, between 11:30 and noon. What is people are upset about are, oh my God, how could those girls sleep through that and then wake up at noon the next day and just be like, oh, my roommates are all dead. How? Okay, so we all know, like I said, we don't know where they were the night before, but we all know that college kids sleep in. The other thing I would like to propose is if they did hear what went on, they could be like I told you, there was one nurse who survived that 1966 Richard Spector unaliving in Chicago, of the nurses. That girl, when I told you there were 5 or 6 home, when one arrived and then another arrived, they had gone out on dates. And this happened at from, I don't know, 10 or 11 at night it started and lasted a couple hours. When they walked in, the survivor said she thought he lost count. She hid under a bed when he was taking out the other girls. And he kept doing it, killing the big R-ing them. And nobody heard. This was in Chicago, where there were other buildings around. Nobody heard this all going on. She stayed under that bed from when this started, between 9 and 10 or whatever, and she stayed under that bed until 6 a.m. in the morning, until she knew, because she was afraid. He's still here. He's still here. Do I hear him? She waited for as long as she could. She was frightened out of her mind. He didn't even know anybody survived. In fact, they kept it a secret that there was a survivor, and she ID'd him. So these girls very likely could have woken up and heard what the hell was going on and got under their beds or hid in their closets and shook and shaked and screamed. I mean, not screamed themselves, but were so traumatized that maybe they were staring at each other, eyes big, held on to each other until 6 in the morning or something, then fell asleep, exhausted. And then when they woke up, what are they going to do? There is some YouTube chitter chatter about maybe one of those girls that survived called their boyfriend, and that was the person that came to the door to see and said there was an unconscious person, because either the girls were so traumatized that if they peeked out so they were in the basement part supposedly, and there was stairs up to the part where other people were unalived. So I don't know if you could see feet maybe, but not a whole body and not all the blood, but you would see someone lying there and not moving. Did they call and say, there's someone, they're not moving, we don't know what happened? No, did they call it in? Or did they call their boyfriend, who then peeked in or repeated either what they said, or peeked in himself and saw somebody not moving? Okay. We don't know what happened. I mean, if they were freaked out and hiding in a closet saying, come over here, bring a gun, bring something. We think somebody could still be in the house. We don't know what happened. There were horrible noises. There's blood coming from the ceiling. And the boyfriend comes and the door's open and he looks and, he tells them, come on, get out. And they call the police, right? So that could have happened. So number one is the girls themselves called when they woke up or had gotten through the night and made a phone call. Or they actually did sleep through it after they locked their doors and they heard thumps and just thought people were partying. Or the boyfriend called, supposedly. And like I said, totally uncorroborated. That is just YouTube tea. Or this is what I thought at first, because from what the police said, that a reporter said on Twitter, was that a phone call had come in, they wouldn't say who it was from, that said there was an unconscious person. I was like, and they won't release the phone call, and they won't say who made the phone call. Was it the killer? Did the killer get tired of waiting for his big reveal? Like, where was the freaking cops? Where were the ambulances? Where were all the running around and the people? Like now, if you do something like this, maybe you want to see everybody scurry around like ants and freak out. And you do this on a Saturday night at 3 a.m., you figure, whoo, it's going to pop off in the morning. Nothing pops off. And then you wait. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Okay, by 11:30, you're like, I'm going to make my own phone call from maybe I don't know if there's payphones. I don't know where the person, maybe they had a burner. I don't know if they'd be stupid enough to make it from their own phone call, but they could have made a phone call to say, yeah, there's an unconscious person, just to watch first a cop come and then people flip out. So, again, what do we know? 4 beautiful people are dead. We don't have a suspect. We don't have a motive. We don't have the weapon. They think they know what the weapon is because of the autopsies. We don't know a lot. Lock your doors. If you live in Moscow, and I'm saying co very with emphasis because you can hear it. Moscow, not cow, not moo, no, co. If you live around Moscow, Idaho, yeah, lock your doors. Especially when you sleep at night. Lock your inner door to your bedroom or push something in front of your door. That's what I would tell you to do. I wouldn't say don't. People went home early for Thanksgiving, which is kind of bad, because how are you going to see your students' hands? See, if school was in session, now it's winter, it's cold there, it's getting to be winter, they're probably wearing mittens, but I would want to be like, yeah, everybody, hand in something. Let me see your hands. The person's hands are going to be cut up. And it's Thanksgiving break, and now people are saying they're not going to come home. So if the person is a student, what a great thing. They could just be like, oh, I'm afraid to come back. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Could be, maybe it's a professor. Maybe it's, somebody said, could be a townie. It could be, like, the thing is, you could think up 1,000 scenarios for who it could be and why. Because these were very good-looking girls, and it could be completely random by a freak who just had an open door and didn't get the girls downstairs because they didn't think that the downstairs looks like a basement, and there was just a laundry room, and they figured those rooms, they might have not even known they were bedrooms. Because everybody's like, oh, the killer knew them. They had to know the layout of the house. If you are in somebody's house, the doors are open, and I mean, you could not know them well and learn the layout of the house and just go in and kill people. I mean, you could. Richard Spector did it. I'm thinking of Ted Bundy did it with the Chi Omega house in Florida. You don't have to know the whole house to do these horrible things, unfortunately. Or it could be. I mean, they're in the Greek life. Greek life is, I looked it up, 25% of the student population. They're all Greek. Each one of them was in a fraternity or sorority. Is it somebody who hated Greek life people and felt left out? Was somebody didn't get a bid in a fraternity or sorority? Was, did one of the girls turn down a date? It could be anything. That's the problem. So that is what the police are looking for. Everybody on YouTube, everybody in the true crime world is thinking of, like, has to be somebody they know. Has to be more than one or two people. It has to, bullshit. Hate to tell you people. This is one of those weird rando things where our brains don't like it because there's too many variables. And there really are. The only thing we know is this person was angry. Angry. To use a knife, you are angry and you are getting up front and personal with it. And they got off on it. That's a horrific. You don't do that unless you have big issues. So, I don't know. To the families, I am so sorry. I have children your age. I call my kids every night. And I make them call me in the morning. I watch them on Life 360. Why? Because what if somebody... I mean, it's horrific to have your child out in the world and be an adult at a college setting when you know they're, seeing things, making decisions that you made when you were the age, but you wish they wouldn't. It's a nightmare. And then something like this, like a living nightmare happens, and then what do you do? I still think you should go watch Mel's live. The last 3 ones, I would watch all of them. I would specifically pay attention. I don't know about... They said they've cleared Hoodie Guy. Apparently, go watch that video. That dude does not order food. He backs away when he notices there's a camera, puts his hat forward, puts up his hood, tracks the girls, does behind him. They spoke with another guy who Hoodie Guy spoke with, and he was a bigger guy, and he was like, yeah, well, I didn't really know that guy. I thought he was with them, but he wasn't. So, just because the police have spoken with Hoodie Guy, I don't think anybody's ruled completely out. They're just saying, they're not a person of interest at this time. Remember that phrase when you hear them talk, at this time. They're going to be talking to everybody, but guarantee you, if you saw that kid, even if he wasn't the one who did this, he was doing something. I mean, he was creeping on those girls. That doesn't mean he followed them home and did anything. He could have, that's the sad thing about all this. You can have creepy stalker guys. These girls were they were extremely good looking, and everybody said they're nice. I don't know about their personalities, but I can see, I mean, I have 2 eyes, even though I'm heterosexual. I thought they were very attractive girls. So I am sure, that's the thing. Which creeper could it be? Pick your creeper. That is going to be the problem. There's going to be, like, too many people. So let's all hope that with the FBI's help and with some good luck of somebody noticing that somebody's hands who goes to the University of Idaho, even if they're at home on break, that their hands are all cut up. Do not believe that they were working on their car. That's what they always say. Oh, I was working on my car. I was working on this. You tell the police if anybody who goes to the University of Idaho has cut up hands. Do you understand? You tell. Cut up hands. That is what the regular population can do. If you're working in the city of Moscow, look at everybody who comes into your store when they hand you change. Are their hands cut up? We've got like another week before, it'll scab, but there's time. Look at people's hands. All right. This is a story we obviously will be talking about forever and ever. This is going to be a big one. Also, if you want to, so my biggest main squeezes were Mel at Icked spelled I-C-K-E capital M-E-L, ed, like education, and Mel, like Melvin, Mel. Police off the cuff with Bill Cannon and Phil Giraldi, and the local station was Creme, K-R-E-M, I think it was 2. Those are who I recommend you go to watch their live streams, who I think, especially Mel, does a great job. I like the police perspective. I'm sure I haven't seen duty rounds, but I like the police perspective, but I also think Mel does a really complete overview of everybody. He'll even listen to anybody who calls in, but he's a very good critical reasoner. So that's why I watch him. It gives you the full spectrum. So watch the police ones, yes, definitely. Watch the lawyer ones, sure. But also watch the true crime sleuths that are respectful and are crowdsourcing other sleuths to their program, like Mel. All right, that was our first case. True crime, grapevine, on to case 2. How do you like that? Now I'm making up my own little ditties. That's what I used to do as a teacher. Sorry, 5-year-olds loved it. All right, we're drinking apple pie, white wine, highly recommended. Cinnamony finish. All right, case 2 is another university, this time all the way across the country from Idaho. We are at the University of Virginia in the city of Charlotte. And Charlotte had enough of its troubles in 2000. I believe that was 16, right? Or was it 17 that spring? We've heard of University of Virginia before. I don't know why they tend to have issues with these kind of problems. It's unfortunate. It's a great school, great programs for sports, including football. So I thought at first this was the football team that went on a field trip, and then somebody boarded the football team's bus and began shooting. But I was mistaken. Last week, Sunday night, so as the people in Idaho were just reeling from what they had found out Sunday afternoon, across the country in Virginia, a group of students that had taken a class about African American, the African American experience expressed, I believe, in like literature and in art, went to a field trip. They were seeing a play in Washington, D.C. that was based on the life of Emmett Till. And if you don't know, Emmett Till was I believe he was maybe 15 or maybe even younger. He was a young black man in the South who, I think, and maybe it was Virginia. It wasn't very, I don't remember where in the South, and I'm sorry to the Till family. But he had spoken and just sort of like flirted a little bit, I guess. I mean, just said something flirty to a white woman, and this was back in the day when that was not allowed. And somehow it got turned into that he was whatever, they lynched him. So and his mother wanted the community to see what her son had been treated like and what had happened because of this racism. And it was in the Jim Crow era. And anyways, when civil rights were just they were fighting for civil rights. I think it was in the 30s or 40s or beginning 50s. It was pre-60s, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, see, I should be taking the class that these students went on. So they saw this play about Emmett Till, and they rode back, and they also stopped at, I guess, a great Ethiopian restaurant. And the people, the survivors on the bus from the class, said a lot of the students in the class were football members, because it was a class where I guess the university population isn't highly African American, but this was one class where there were more African Americans in it, and a lot of the football team happened to be African American, and they were in this class. And so the person who spoke, though, was a female. So there weren't just football players on this bus, which is what I thought, because the shooter was a football player in the past, and he shot current football players. But no, there were other people. There were 25 kids on this bus that went to see this play. They were having good conversation. Everything to them seemed fine, but they did mention the shooter. This he's 22-year-old Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. So Christopher had been acting odd a little bit. Like when they went to the play, he sat by himself in the regular admission, not with them. When they went to the restaurant, he sort of ate just, off to, like, he wasn't being super social. And on the bus, he was very quiet, not talking. Apparently, and he was sitting in the back, and this girl had also spoken to him when these 3 football players went to go to the bathroom. It seems like something was said, but it wasn't really clear. Something about, the girl thought maybe they said, the person who ended up shooting it said something about, "You always messed with me." Now, let me tell you about the young men who passed away. So 5 people were shot, 3 people are deceased. Here were the descriptions of the victims. I want to tell you about them because they sound like fabulous people. So Devin Chandler, they said he was the life of the party. He smiled all the time. He loved to sing and dance. He was just very outgoing. He was actually asleep when he was shot. Lavelle Davis was like big man on campus. He was very well liked, like a leader. And Deshaun Perry, he was a quieter guy of the group, and everybody wanted to know about it. Like, they were interested. He was like magnetic, artistic. So apparently, as they arrived on campus, so there was like this discussion, this little something said at the back of the bus, but when they were arriving on campus, the shooter, Christopher, all of a sudden, the girl said she thought at first it was like somebody popping a chips bag or maybe a balloon popping. She heard the pop, but then she could smell the smoke of like gun powder. She saw the one football player was shot in his sleep. She said that as he was shooting, he walked down the aisle, but he didn't walk normally. He was like slowly sort of like walking with purpose and then looking, and then she said she heard shots and then she didn't hear anything, and then she heard some more. So one of the survivors, there are 2 survivors, one who has already been discharged, which is a female, I believe, and then another who is in the hospital and is intubated, and that is Micheal Hollins. And Micheal actually went back in, and that's when he was shot, because he went back in to help his teammates. So all of those shot, besides the one, I believe her name was Marley Morgan, she was discharged. But everybody else, the guy who was still in the hospital and the 3 deceased people, they were all football players. Well liked, very popular. Now, Christopher had walked onto the football team in 2018. He had played, but he was injured. He was on this field trip because he was in another class with the same teacher. And everybody loves this teacher and says she's a magnetic teacher, a great professor. And she is devastated, obviously, about what happened. His bond was denied Wednesday. and he was assigned to public defender. His dad said he did say this fall that he was feeling that people were after him, that people didn't like him, he was being bullied, and his dad was like, well, just focus on your studies. And I guess he had been bullied as a very young child. Before he played football at his high school, he lived with his mom, like in the projects. People made fun of the way he dressed, called him poor, and he admittedly said he didn't handle his anger. His dad wasn't in the picture until he was in high school, where he became like a football hero star, very smart. He also said he was made fun of and when he was little because, he's a black kid from the projects and he's raising his hand all the time, and, people are making fun of him for being like overly, like trying too hard in school, and then he didn't dress right because he was poor. So he was very bullied as a child. So apparently somewhere between 2018, he seemed to not have problems, anything that were detected in 19 or 20, but then in 2021, he was trying to buy guns and he couldn't. He had a problem with having I think he had a gun that was concealed that he wasn't supposed to have. There was a hazing issue. I mean, he started having these problems, and his dad was saying he felt like he wasn't being treated right. And right before he shot these people, he said, like, you were messing. Why are you always messing with me? Let me give you his exact words that were reported. Excuse me. Sorry, my notes are a little crazy. It was reported that he said, he did try to get guns. I'm sorry. He tried to get guns in 2018 but was too young. In 2021, he tried but failed because of a background check. In July 8th on 2021, there was he was also denied for an ongoing weapons charge, but just lately that was dropped. And so he was able to purchase a handgun and a rifle, which you can get instead of like I think semi-automatic he could not get because of the ongoing thing. I am wondering, similar to, I looked this up again because my background's in psychology and developmental psychology. I wonder, he seems to have been paranoid. He seems to have been thinking people were after him. I don't know anything else about him. I am wondering if he is, I looked up, boys develop schizophrenia in their early 20s. And it comes on slowly. And there's certain symptomologies. And I cannot obviously ID or identify or diagnose. But I wonder, I don't know, the idea that he was paranoid. He wanted weapons to protect himself. He was yelling at these guys who really hadn't spoken to the whole trip. He was no longer on the football team. So was there some latent jealousy because he got hurt when but he was a senior and was graduating. It just seems odd that all of a sudden he flipped out. It was their last home game right before this. The next weekend would have been their last home game, which was canceled. It was with Coastal Carolina. I know because my niece goes there. And they don't know if that game was canceled. And their conference got stickers to put on their helmets, but that doesn't bring back the boys. But it's a nice gesture. But did he want to ruin their last part of their, year? Was there something in his head about, I didn't make it in football? But again, he didn't make it in 2018, and he didn't do anything until 2022? I don't know if that played into it. I'm really thinking there might be some mental stability issues. He has a public defender, like I said, and he will be in court. I'm trying to see if this was the one. If his court date, I think his court date will be, when will his court date be? I think this is the one where the lawyer asked for some time, time to get to know what he was doing. Anyways, we'll keep abreast of this issue. Really sad case. Again, another horrible college thing. These parents, we send our kids away to college, especially if they're on the football team. They're going to see a play of cultural significance. You don't expect, I'm sure every time they're on the football field, oh my gosh, I hope my kid doesn't get his neck broken. I hope he's okay, he doesn't break anything, concussions. And instead, we get, going to a play was the end. That just seems unbelievable. All right, so that was our second case. Like, if you like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'm just going to show you off before we talk about our third case. Do you like my lights? Look, I have a true crime grapevine, and I have a little wine glass for our wine time at the true crime grapevine. And now it's time for case 3. If we're only watching cases and you're only interested in this new case, this is apple pie. We're drinking with it, my unofficial sponsor and thematic drink for this episode 36, which is covering November 12th through November 19th. And one of the cases was Rachel Castillo, only 25. She is in my the type of true crime that I call over my dead body, which is when we have some couple problems. And if you follow true crime and any DV, IPV, which is interpersonal violence, you might know that, especially for women, the time for violence and especially death is highest during 2 specific times. One, when they're pregnant. Isn't that odd? And 2, when they're divorcing. Those are the 2 times that are most dangerous. And Miss Rachel had 2 children by a Mr. I'm not going to say his name right. I'd like to blame it on dyslexia a little bit. It's just because it's okay. I'm just going to blame dyslexia. Zarbaba. No, there's no A on the end. Zarbab Ali. That's how I'm going to say it. And you know what? He seems to allegedly have offed somebody, so maybe he doesn't deserve to have his name said right. Zabarbah Ali. Sorry, Zabarbah. You can't hear me anyways. You're in jail. He is 25. His ex-wife, was also 25. She went missing on November 10th. Her keys were in the house. This was in Simi Valley. Her keys were in the house. Her cell phone was in the house. Her purse was in the house. She was not in the house, and there was blood everywhere. She lived with her children and her sister, Emily, I believe. And Emily came home. I hope that's right. I want to make sure I have her sister's name right. They lived in the Wood Ranch apartment complex. Yes, her sister Emily came home. And yeah, her vehicle was still there too. And found, she was missing. All her stuff was there and there was blood everywhere. So we know from enough of these cases, when there's horrific loss of blood, they're figuring the person has been unalived. That was on November 10th. Pretty quickly, by Sunday, November 13th, they found the body in Antelope Valley. And her ex-husband was the suspect, obviously. He had a hearing on Tuesday. Oh, so he's the person that they had to wait because apparently now he's in a stupor and suicidal because of unaliving the mother of his children and then getting caught because now he knows I don't know. He's been charged with, I believe, is it first-degree murder? I wonder if it would be second-degree because it would be a crime of passion. It says he's a murder charge. It was filed Tuesday a.m., November 15th. He's being held on a level 1 safety precaution because of his tendencies to hurt himself. He did not appear in court, but he did appear by Zoom. But he was in a lockdown situation, and he couldn't really talk, so he couldn't really plead. And the lawyer that he was given a public defender, and the lawyer asked for 6 weeks. So on December 16th, he will make his initial pleading. So he's, you know, it's really sad when you lose your cool and you end up ruining everybody's life, especially your own. So they did say in July, so they weren't formally divorced, but in July they had a meeting, you know, to talk about like support and children. She was going to college at Pepperdine, following her mother's footsteps. She already had a BA from where they met, which was U of C Santa Cruz. She had an undergraduate in psychology, and usually in psychology you need to get a master's level to do a job, and then many people go on to get a doctorate as well. And she was going to do her master level work to get a marriage, ironically, a marriage and family therapy certificate, and to be a therapist. Just was starting that, and she was awarded $2,000 a month because she was the primary caregiver of their children. So about $1,000 a month for each child, which really isn't very much to take care of a kid, especially in California. Now, did that have anything to do with why he grew upset, shelling out, you know, maybe he didn't want to give $2,000 every month to her for the kids. I don't know. But that happened in July, and by November, that was that. It's really sad. They said they would have been married 10 years, I believe. But they were getting divorced. They got married young. They met in college at US Santa Cruz in, trying to see, I think it was 2015. She had her first child in 2017 while they were both still in college. They got married in 2018, and then they had their second child in 2020. So they had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. They have. I mean, the children are safe, and the children are fine. So, what can we learn? I don't know what happened, so I don't know what we can say we can learn, because I don't know. I can't say she did anything wrong. We don't know. I mean, when you're getting divorced, you have to be careful, I guess. But we don't know. Did he just show up unannounced? We don't know if there was a custody exchange that was supposed to happen. I guess not, because the boys weren't there. So we don't know exactly what happened in this case. We'll find out more as it goes to trial. The thing about catching a suspect, and when there's arrest and we start the trial process, then we get charging documents. We get indictments. We see what did they submit in paper for arresting the person. What does the actual indictment indicting them for trial look like? That's when people who are court watchers, that's when we get all the information. So right now, I mean, she ran unluckily into a monster who couldn't handle being broken up with. All right, that was case 3. Like and subscribe. We're up to True Crime Fans. By the way, hi, it's still me, Patty Lee. This is still episode 36. We're on to our 4th case, which is, look at me, that is crazy. Oh, this is a little nutty. Hang with me here. If you are drinking apple pie wine, then you're drinking the same thing we are. Maybe you're drinking something else, but make sure you have a glass of something, even if it's just water. Good to hydrate, right? Okay, so case 4 is another of our Idaho cases. It is an update on a missing boy. And this does seem like a true abduction case, which most of these are not. Most times when kids go missing, unfortunately, it always ends up being related probably to a parent or caregiver. This case in Fruitland, Idaho, looks like a true abduction. Mikey Vaughn, Monkey, is what they nicknamed him. He was just, I believe, turning 5. He'd be 6 now. He was very active, like me as a kid. And when I say active, I mean like hyperactive. Mind going, mouth going, body really going all the time. And he was smart and funny and social. He wanted to be out. He wanted to play with friends. He wanted to do things by himself. He had just had a new baby, I believe sister. He just wanted to do it all. And his mom had just started a new job. His dad was taking care of him, but his dad was also watching the baby. And so, like any 5-year-old who can do it all, while that one parent's busy with the baby, he went out and did his own thing. Unfortunately, Mikey liked to get out, and he was going to go visit his friends by himself, and he got out, I guess because he got out the back door, and I guess they did see him go down the street, and he did knock on he tried to knock on doors, like they have video ring cams, but not after a certain point. So they never found him. They haven't found him, and it's been over a year. So this happened not this summer, but the past summer. So last week, a woman who lived rather close, also in Fruitland, about a 5-minute drive, I believe it was, just like the next little street, cul-de-sac over. It's not clear if she called the police or if she was talking to someone who then reported it, I believe, to the police, that she knew where Mikey was buried, and that Mikey was buried in her neighbor's yard. And she knew this because her husband, Casey, told her, because he did it. And then, no, God told her that Casey did it. And then, it wasn't Casey who did it. No, it was Casey buried Mikey, but it was Aiden, this man Aiden, who did it, not Stacy. Stacy is her husband. She started out saying the body, she knew because whoever, God, Stacy, or Aiden, whoever did something, she knew that he was in the neighbor's yard. But when police came and confronted her and, showed her an affidavit, then she said, okay, well, it's in this over here, which was near the front part, I guess, of her property. And then she said, no, wait, Stacy buried him by the shed in the backyard. Okay, so this property is dug up. They're still digging this property up. This information broke, I think, during the weekend last week. I mean, I will tell you, I was very hesitant to speak on it because I don't know. It was, number one, I wanted to wait till, are they going to find anything? Is this, these cases, I don't know if you've been watching true crime a long time, you see things like the JonBenet case. This is my best example of this. The JonBenet case, there was 2 or 3 times where people confessed and said, no, I did it. Nope, it was in, the one person was in Thailand and said they did all these horrific things, and they brought that person back to the United States. And then DNA and everything, and it found it was impossible. So why, I started researching, why do people make false confessions and how common is it? And so if you are in an interrogation, it's very common to get the police to shut up. You tell them what you think they want to hear. That actually is unfortunately, very common. But there's also situations where people say things to get attention because it's a very high-profile case and they want that for themselves. I know. And that reminds me a lot of little kids, right? Oh, I know what happened. I know who did it. And then they start telling you, and it's some weird, crazy story, and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, if you've worked with or known 4 and 5-year-olds. They know what happened. They'll tell you. I mean, and part of it is they just want confirmation from the authority. Like me. I have something that's worthwhile. Listen to me. So this woman, she is 35. I forget who first mentioned it, but I watched her pleading. I will tell you. And then I was not surprised. After they showed her pleading, which is the first time you're in court and you plead, you know, they say, these are your charges. Do you understand them? How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty? Do you have a lawyer? That's your first, after being arrested, that's your first, like, when the trial stuff, the court. And I've worked with the special ed population, and I would guarantee you her IQ is between 70, the high 70s, low 80s. I guess her job is driving a taxi, but I don't know what she really knows. I don't know what she thinks she knows. I definitely see the capacity to tell authority what they want to hear and to tell other people that they know of something important because of wanting to be important. I started thinking this too. At the same time I watched it and I was like, and they said she was being looked at for competency. Okay, Idaho, we know what happens with competency. Boy, dyslexia. Competency. Why is that word hard for me to say right now? To be competent, competency. I don't know if it has anything to do with this. Sometimes it makes words hard. You'll know I had too much of my wine if I start saying cinnamon. Sometimes I say cinnamon. See, if I say it wrong at the beginning, it all trips through. That is dyslexia. All right, so again, something about the overall impression of her speaking and then also hearing the competency, I was not surprised. I think not only is she not, I don't think she's like not competent. I would think she has intellectual disabilities. And I think she might have just made something up. They haven't found anything as far as I know. And I could be wrong. And Mikey was little, as most 5-year-olds are, and it's been over a year. And so there would be copious decomposition. Sorry to be gross. They are sifting through every bucketful. I mean, they are doing such huge due diligence. I'm just thinking everybody's wanting to hear something that they listened to somebody they shouldn't have. I really don't know. If that little boy was snatched, I can definitely see somebody just keeping him. He was cute and smart and funny. I mean, I don't even say is. He'd be older though, now 6. I just don't know if they're going to find his remains in that, where they're, I mean, I don't think she is a reliable source of information. That is just my opinion. Nobody else has said anything. I don't have any information from other sources for that. Quite frankly, that is my own opinion just from watching her speak. She, it's called thin slicing in cognition. I just got an immediate big picture of, and then I did look up just about false confessions. How common are they? And then I looked up who's most likely. You'd be surprised. There are academic and research articles on every single thing you would ever want to know about. And Google will help you find them. Google that. Hashtag Google that shit. So, yeah. Apparently, having an intellectual disability is one of the common features of people who are attention-seeking false confessors. So, and when they're not finding him, are they going to her? The funny thing was in her first hearing, when they said, she goes, I heard you say the word murder. I didn't I'm not I don't know. I think she made it up. I think it's a false confession. And I think it's a waste of time. Of course, if they find him, that will be heartbreaking. And of course I want him to be alive somewhere, adopted by somebody who couldn't have kids and leading an alternative life. And, his mom's heartbroken, but she'll meet him again and he'll be alive one day. Of course, that's what we want the story to be. And there are rare cases of children being held and alive. They're not great endings for the kid usually, but I'm sure his mom would love for him just to still be surviving. I don't know. We will find out. I don't like her story. I don't like the delivery of the story. I don't like that she changed who was involved, where they were supposed to dig. It just seemed so much like little kids I know who tell stories, and when you find one part that doesn't fit, they just give you another answer, hoping that you'll accept it and like them. Shockingly, I'm buying another bottle of this, and I'm going to be taking it to my holiday. I like the bottle too. All right, we're up to our case 5. This is an update on the Delphi case. So, what is going on with the Delphi case? Well, as you may have heard, and maybe not, there is a suspect that was arrested. And everybody was talking about this man. His name is Richard Allen. He was a local, and everybody's like, see, I knew there was somebody that was living in plain sight. And, usually in a small town, the person doing the crime is part of the small town. And it's easier in a small town to figure out who it is. It's not usually, because it's small. Something interesting in his charging documents that not everybody specifically found evidence for. It was spoken about on a couple of my lawyer channels. I think Scott Wright on Crime Talk, who's a defense attorney, brought it up. I also think Lori Hellis on when she did her crime review. And she has a new podcast. Lori Hellis is the good Lori. She predominantly started out talking about the Daybell case. She is a retired lawyer, and she's writing a book about the Lori and Chad Daybell case. But she just started her own YouTube channel. She was on Hidden True Crime with reporter Lauren Mathias and Lauren's criminal psychologist husband, John Mathias. They also started on Daybell crime. They are also branching out to other crimes. But Lori Hellis is just doing kind of a quicker version of what I'm doing, but she does it live, and she has interaction with people. I just blab at you and give you something to listen to when you're doing the dishes or walking your dog or driving to and from work or whatever, falling asleep and you need blah, 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 blah to, make you go to sleep. That's how I use podcasts. So, of course, I'm just assuming everybody's like me. Whatever you use a podcast for. Okay, it's late at night, and I'm doing my whole dyslexic, showing you exactly what dyslexia is like. That's the ADHD. I just floated away there for a second. But anyways, she has also talked about a little bit about every case. She's doing like a little small roundup, and she has a lawyer perspective. So I think she has mentioned what I'm about to say this other guy has found evidence for. So people have said, they're not saying he's the killer. They're saying that he's involved in a felony murder. And and lawyers were trying to tell us, what does that mean? And I believe also Duty Ron and the Bill Cannon on Police Off the Cuff, two good sources for podcasts that give you the police perspective. They were saying it doesn't necessarily have to be it's not just murder one. It is felony murder, which could mean there's accomplices, or he's an accomplice, or he's part of a felony crime that resulted in the murders of Abby and Libby. Abby and Libby were two beautiful tween girls. They were young. I think they were 12 and 13, pre-high school. They were in middle school. There was a warm day on February 13th was when they went for a walk in like a nature preserve. They actually had been talking, or Libby had been talking to what they thought was a good-looking teenage man, boy, really, by the name of Anthony Schatz. And that account had been saying, hey, let's meet at the Monon High Bridge in this preserve on this date. So somebody lured the girls to meet them. And they went missing that afternoon, and then their bodies were found the next day. And this was coming up on 6 years ago. The actual crime, sorry, I should know this. So this man, there's been a number of people looked at. One of them ran that Anthony Schatz account. His name was Keegan Klein, and they're like, is he the one? He was arrested because Keegan's information included all this, like Children of the Corn. If you put a P in front of corn, imagine that. He had a lot of Children of the Corn pictures on his, I'm trying to use YouTube-friendly language here, pictures on his phone, on his laptop, on his other phone, He'd like iPhones, Android phones. You get the picture. Pictures no one wants to get, or should have. So he's in jail for all those Children of the Corn. And interestingly, as Richard Allen was notified as like he's a subject, they went to his house, and a week later they arrested him. During that same time, Keegan Klein was supposed to be going up for his trial on these Children of the Corn issues, and he got 5 charges. Now of like 30, he got 5 dropped, so he still has 25. But he got some substantial dropping of charges right at that same time, and they're going to wait. On his trial is delayed. Often when people make deals, they have to, if they tell the prosecution something that they want to hear, the prosecution makes them wait. They have to like tell on the other person, it has to be good before they get the deal. So it seems like the police aren't saying they're connected, but it seems awfully weird that the one guy who had the account that brought the girls to the area in which they were killed, that suddenly he's getting something taken off, and we have another subject. And they found something at his house, and we had been told that whoever unalived the girls had taken trophies with them. They were missing some pieces of clothing. We don't know what they found. They also searched a river. So did Keegan tell them, look here, and then you can look here, and you will find like proof that what I'm telling you about this guy is right? He was a pharmacist. So I said, I don't know, could he have had like ether because he worked in a pharmacy, something that would knock the girls out? Like, are there a number of people involved in this? We don't know. There's been a number of other people. What the other person, a farmer whose land upon which they were found, who was making people give him alibis before the girls were found and announced that there was a murder. So some people are like, yeah, but it was on his land, so maybe he saw it, knew he'd be in trouble, and needed a alibi, which is weird, because if you didn't do it, wouldn't you just get the police? But anyways, who knows? That guy, he died of COVID this past January, so he's out of the picture. But the FBI is still involved in this. It seems like maybe there's a network of something, because the felony murder, this guy, so the guy I wanted to tell you about, the YouTuber who discovered this like evidence of what was going on, is Anthony Mark Lopez. And he's a YouTube lawyer. Look for Anthony Mark with a C, Lopez, Lopes. He's an Indiana lawyer, and he's done like 5 little videos, really, really quick, nothing like mine, on why Richard Allen is charged with felony murder and how he knows that it's not like murder one, he's the murderer. Because if you look at any code, there's like U.S. code, there's state code, there's municipal code. they're listed by a number, and then like letters, and then numbers in parentheses, and then like Roman numbers. There's a system to it by why it changes from what kind of number and letter, but it changes from like then brackets to then parentheses to brackets. But along this, I know just enough about how law is identified to understand what he was saying is it had a 2 in a bracket, which definitely signifies it's a felony murder charge with that 2 in it, which means there was a commission of a felony that led to the murder that this guy's charged with. So like not just murder, but a felony that led to and contributed substantially to the murder of Libby and Abby. Libby German and Abby Williams. So what was this? Oh, the list of what these felonies, there's specific felonies that are included in this code. Corn is one of them. The children of the corn is one of them. Trafficking children, like, of the corn. Abuse of the corn kids. I mean, you guys, really horrific crimes are part of this. So as you can imagine, looking at the account that lured them, lured, I think that's how you say it. Let's drink to that, lured. The account that lured them there to the bridge, and then put that together with what this guy's charged with, and the fact that the FBI is still involved. I mean, are we dealing with some sort of group? That's what it kind of looks like. But we know at least that Richard Allen is involved, so there's at least more than one person. And we can very logically assume that Keegan Kline had something to do with it because he was in charge of the account that lured the children there, which means, did he give that to Richard Allen? Was he selling these accounts to other men who wanted to contact young girls? Was there a group? Like, what was his customer base? That's the kind of direction I think we're going. So it's gross, but we're getting closer to what happened to Abby and Libby. I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh, the other weird thing was when they mentioned him as a suspect, they just lately it came out that he had gone to the police. Maybe he knew about geofencing because he said, I just want to let you know because we're looking for these girls. I was in the park that day and I went on that bridge, but I didn't see them, and this is what time I was there. So, I'm just a good citizen helping you establish a time frame. And really, it could have been just, hi, I'm coming to you to tell you something to help out. Oop, hi, baby. And also, by the way, my phone probably pinged in this area about this time, and I'm telling you so you can rule me out. And they kind of did. So without Keegan blabbing to save his own skin, we never probably would have known. So yeah, it's weird that he would just offer that he was at the bridge. So they're saying, so he is bridge guy, but I still don't know if he is bridge guy. We had another picture, remember, that came out later. I think there's more than one. I think there's, I don't think it's one person. How do you get two people? The other thing that somebody mentioned was when, I don't know if I said this last week, but somebody said when the voice says guys down the hill, what if they weren't talking to the two little girls? What if there was a group of people ready to do this? And the main person was saying, okay, guys, we're going to take them down the hill. And that's how they controlled two little girls, because there was more than one grown-up guy. Again, that part, that's just me. That's my supposition. And again, the only thing we can do is we can teach our children. Now, if you saw that freaking bridge, there was nowhere for them to run. that was the other scary thing. They lured them on to a place and onto this bridge that you couldn't like run off on either side. It dropped down 100 feet, like 3 or 4 stories it looked like. I don't even know how that place can exist in a park without having sides on it, because it's Indiana, I guess. I don't know. That seems weird. But they really were like herded into like sheep to a slaughter. This is going to turn to be a horrible trial. And I think that's another reason. We know there was like a ritualistic aspect to this as well. I do think we are talking about more than one person. It's going to be disgusting and gross, and I feel sorry for the families. And everything is still sealed. So November 22nd is when there's a hearing to unseal the arrest charges, the indictment for Richard Allen. So the family wants it kept sealed, but really it benefits all of us. That stuff should be public because we think like, okay, well, we need to respect the family's wishes and they got the bad guy. But the thing is, what if it's not a bad guy? What if they really don't have that much, but they have enough and they're trying to squeeze him for more? Like, that's playing the devil's advocate. You know, what if he was innocent? And what if, I don't know where they found the information, but what if Keegan Kline himself had placed evidence on other people's property to get them to help? Like, you don't know where I put this, but I got something on you, and if you don't help me, I'm going to turn you. Like, what if he put it? I don't know if the evidence that they found, because they were digging in his yard. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, it seems like there is a lot of coincidental corroboration that yes, he looks good for this, or helping out with this at least, but we don't know. And that's scary, because what if he was an innocent guy and they're saying, ooh, he's part of this big bad thing, and we can't tell you about it because it's really bad, but trust us. I mean, I haven't run afoul of the police, and so I generally trust them, but I'm white and middle class, and I haven't been in a position where I don't go out late at night. I mean, I haven't put myself in the position where a bad police officer could do something to me. So I generally trust the police. You know, they're community helpers and blah, blah, blah. But I understand that is not true for everybody and every police officer, and some are great and some aren't, just like some people are good and some aren't. So all I'm saying is that, does he look good for it? Sure, but we should see, and we should all want to see. When you're arrested, they have to tell you and the public, see, we got this bad guy, and here's the reason why. Here's how you know we're not abusing our power and just imprisoning people to get them to talk. Because like I said, false confessions, number one reason isn't that there's somebody seeking attention. Number one reason for a false confession is because they just want a bad interrogation, like abusive interrogation, to end. So one reason we don't want abuse is so that it's called, transparency. That's why sunshine laws are written for government. We don't want them to do, you think, oh, it's in secret to keep us safe so that whatever, but no. Once you arrest somebody, that's why you don't arrest somebody until you're ready to show your cards. It's like calling in poker. See, this is what I have. I beat you. It's like going, see, the guy is bad or the lady is bad. We're putting them in jail. But we don't know that. So maybe on the 22nd, we will find out. Doesn't bring back the girls, but we would like the parents to get all the information. And I know it is horrific to think everybody's going to hear what happened to your child when they've been harmed. Unfortunately, to put the bad guys away and make sure they're really the ones, that's just how the system works. So I feel sorry for the families, but I don't know. Hopefully, I do hope on the 22nd we get the indictment. I mean, they can redact certain things. But if you're not ready to go, then you don't start arresting people. That is the issue. All right. On to the next case. Bloop, bloop. Like and subscribe, please. True crime, grapevine, all the time. Hi. That's me trying to come up with my own sort of theme song. Doesn't have very good rhythm. If you have any idea for a theme song, write it in the comments or send it to me. I need to put my Gmail account, I think, in our community section. All right. Sorry, I've got that nose thing, you know, like when you drink and it gets funny feeling. Tasting. I don't taste my nose. That's silly. All right, guys. We're still in episode 36. This is covering November 12th through the 18th. We have, let's see, I have 1, 2. I'm going to give you guys, look at me. Oh, for sure. Let's do it this way. I am going to give you, I messed up the order from the intro. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 of our cases that are, kind of fast all together. How does that sound? That sounds great, Patty. Thank you. I think so, too. All right, we're going to talk about some updates that you need to know about. Debbie Collier is my first one. They have decided it is not a homicide, it is a suicide. Yes, apparently she drove an hour away. She dressed up in clothes she never wears. Maybe because she was going to burn herself, because that's how she did it. She died through inhalation of smoke of gaseous emissions that were superheated. As one does, you know, one self-emulation, is that how we say it? The only people that she didn't throw gasoline on herself. Supposedly she used a torch lighter. It is sus, people. She wore clothes. Her son said she hadn't worn shorts in 5 years, and she was dressed for a game, because that's what you do when you're going to commit suicide. You dress for the game. You drive an hour out of town. Oh, and she had oxy in her system. What was Amanda addicted to? Remember, she had her boyfriend had a horrible drug problem. I don't think it was Oxycontin, was it? Was it Oxy? That's weird that she would choose to take the same drug. I don't know that. That's my supposition. That is all complete. I don't know what he was. I don't know about the drug substances. I know that the daughter was living with the son, you know, sister and brother. I know that they moved back. She moved back to town to live with her boyfriend and was in town for 2 days before her mother went missing and died, and gave her $3,000 almost. But that is a coincidence, because really her mom wanted to shake off her mortal coil, I guess. I don't know, people. It's weird. I don't buy it. I mean, who cares? I'm just some weird YouTuber with a teeny tiny true crime channel. I do not. No. Oh, and how do we know? Oh, her daughter went on things and was saying, I do not advocate for going after people, but come on. Her daughter goes on all these shows and said, she was giving away everything. And she did, oh, you didn't say that at first. Whatever. Whatever, girl. You live with yourself. Good luck. Better hope there aren't any such things as ghosts. That's what I have to say, because y'all gonna be haunted. I do not. I think there's no way. And she chose to do it when she had a rental. I'm going to drive my rental to a town that I never go to and I have no emotional attachment to. And I'm going to off myself in the most weirdest, horrific way that, like, Tibetan monks do. But I'm going to do it half. And, I mean, I guess if you were burning yourself, you would rip off your clothes because they were burning you. Like, it would hurt. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. To me, that seems like the weirdest way. That's very painful. The autopsy, I don't know if it was released all the way, but I mean, like, was the oxy an overdose? Or, no, they said what killed her was the inhalation of like, that's an awful way to die. I don't even, like, what, would she have looked that up on her computer? How would you even know how to do that? That is not normal. That is not, no, women take pills. Like, an overdose of oxy would have done it. Then that would have been right. But just some oxy, what, to take the edge off when you off yourself? And you do it in a ravine? There is, no. Nope. I don't believe it. I'm noping that one. All right. That was case 6, and then we've got 7 and 8 here. 7 is Troy Driver in Nevada. Troy Driver was the alleged, or is the alleged killer of night. Speaking of offing himself, apparently he tried to this past July in jail, but no such luck. You are going to go to trial. He then, after trying to, he didn't like jail. He then, after trying to take himself out, then he felt he was incompetent, of course, because, I don't know, are they watching, Lori? And, no, competent, going to trial, haha. That's not really a haha. Naomi Irion, she was I'm not sure if she was 18 or 19. I'm sorry, it's in my file. I need to make some quick notes of everything. I am so sorry. I should have written down exactly how old she was. I know I have not a huge file, but I have a file on her. She was 18 or 19. She had a job at Panasonic factory. She was waiting in a Walmart parking lot, which she did every day. And what we said we could learn from that is, if you got to park your car in a parking lot, walk into the building to wait for your ride to come. There was a shuttle that picked her up every morning, but she was in her car and she would listen to podcasts or listen to her music or write her messages. She was trying to use her time waiting wisely, and some monster saw her, allegedly Troy Driver, and walked right up to her car, which her brother, like our first case this episode about the Idaho 4 in Moscow, Idaho, that were unalived, and one of the sisters is looking through all the video. My sorority sister, her sister. Just like that, Naomi's brother was combing, he was the one that's Walmart, let's get the footage, blah, blah, blah. We got to find it. Made them look. And they saw the person walk up to her car, sort of force her over and drive her away. And that's how they broke the case. That and one of Troy Driver's co-workers said he was spending a lot of time. They did something with these mines, and he was off in an isolated area, and then it led to her remains being found. Anyways, yeah, he's going to go to trial. He's competent. He's just, he's just not happy he got caught, and now he feels sad for himself. And that is so sad. Too bad. All right, that was 6, 7. Here's 8. We have the case of another wonderful young gentleman, Marcus Spanevelo. He lived in Florida, but worked in Alabama, and he was dropping off his daughter to his ex. They were not married, but they had a baby together, Sailor. She was 4, I believe, at the time, in Destin, Florida. And she lived in Vero Beach, though. And usually I think they made the switch off halfway in Destin. But this time he drove to her beach area, and thank goodness there was a camera from far away. But apparently he rolled up. Even though it was public, it was late and dusk, and not a lot of people were in the parking lot. And he rolled right up, and he was going to do work. So he had a work trailer, and you can see he puts her into the back of the trailer and then keeps his daughter, does not make the exchange, because he takes Cassie Carlie, which was the mother of Sailor, and they find her in the house that he's helping renovate, where he's living and working in Alabama, in a shallow grave in a barn. Her body is sent to, then he runs with Sailor to Tennessee, gets caught, gets extradited back to Florida. In the meantime, Alabama does the autopsy, sending her body to Huntsville, where they do toxicology and stuff, and it comes back, they don't know. They can't say manner and cause of death, because they didn't find any outstanding. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, you don't put yourself in a shallow grave. So I think it could be, but anyways, if you watched a Duty Run, they talked about a copy investigation where the findings from an autopsy basically say, like, the cops are you're going to have to do further investigation. It is, it's like something under investigation, blah, blah, blah. So, inconclusive, I believe, something until it's under investigation. Basically, the cops are going to have to say, because there wasn't enough physical forensic evidence. So, yeah, so why am I telling you about this now? Sorry, I was waxing angrily about this case. So, yeah, Alabama just now is subpoenaed Marcus's hair, saliva, blood, like his DNA. Yeah, they're doing that now. I mean, it's been over a year and a half, but yeah, maybe we should get that from him. That might be good. So I guess they'll get that from him. I don't know why they waited so long. I put that it's slow as molasses. Don't get off in Alabama. It might be Sweet Home Alabama, but it's not Sweet Death. That's for damn sure. Okay, so we don't know. I wrote that, like, did they find DNA? They must be asking because they have to have something to test it against, right? Is that what's happening? I don't know. It's very hard when you have interstate issues with, like, the families were both from Florida. She was kidnapped and abducted in Florida. The mom was. She was buried. We don't know where she was unalived, but she was buried and found in Alabama. And then he ran to Tennessee where he was arrested. So it was crazy there. He is of Brazilian descent. Brazil, if he could have gotten home with the little girl, he could have kept her there. Even after a murder, he would not have been extraditable because he is a Brazilian national. So let's just be glad he didn't get to an airport with his baby girl. Sailor does live, I believe, now with one of her aunts. But that is a horrible case. We will keep on it. Marcus deserves our attention as he goes down for his crimes. All right, speaking of, so we had competence with the Troy driver from Naomi Irion's case, and he is competent. And we have one more. Guess who else is competent? We have an update. It's no longer Groundhog Day. Judge Boyce in Idaho, in Rexburg, Idaho, has made some decisions about the Vallow-Daybell case, and he has decided, well, he hasn't decided. So Lori saw, not just, this time the prosecution brought in a expert in, competency, especially regarding malingering. This forensic psychologist was the same one that was the person who was looking at and testing and evaluating the guy. I believe it was the guy who abducted. There are so many smart girls. That's weird that have gotten, like, abducted or killed. The little blonde girl who was kept as a religious sex slave in California, or Utah. It was Utah. So that same man was evaluating that guy, and it turned out even after 8 years, finally, like, he was faking it. He was malingering, I believe. Anyways, so that guy, malingering isn't overly common. Like sophisticated malingering by manipulative people. And I think Lori's met her match because, she was found competent, trial's back on, and because she's found competent and trial's back on, the whole idea about Chad needing to sever, Boyce came back and was like, hey, nope, till death do you part. You're together in this, Chad. I mean, we know they're going to point fingers at each other, but he's going to say she made, I don't know what she's going to say. But we know he's going to say, she made me do it. She didn't, I had no idea I was under her spell because she was hot, and look at me, I'm a loser. Whatever, Chad. That is when forensics of text messages and written messages, that it's all going to tell the tale. I don't think whatever she has going on was good enough. I mean, you obviously knew something when you were talking about the pet cemetery and you had to burn things, and oh, Kylie just happened to be in your burn pit. We get it, Chad. Anyways, so his case is not severed. They will, I'm assuming they're both going to go together in October of this coming year, because his trial date, they had asked for longer time, and Lori's had to stop, start. I think there's a lot of legal people who are saying that Boyce is making bad decisions, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm just an angry, Karen. I don't know, people. I think I have a slight grasp. What I also understand is I think this case is horrific enough and the evidence will be substantial enough that these decisions are not going to be big appellate decisions. Let's hope. But the lawyers think that these are appellate problems. The non-severance, like making Chad wait so long, and then Lori not getting her trial fast enough, though I don't know how competency stays it, unstays it. But, I mean, there's some issues there, so I don't think they'll get off, but I don't know if they'll get an appeal. The religious thing still worries me a little bit, though. Not their religion doesn't worry me, but I'm worried that something about what they're saying or what Lori specifically, I don't know, it seems there's too many people who want everything still sealed. So we are hoping to hear more about what's going on in this case. We'll get a trial date soon. But hey, I think it's good. We've got positive movement forward. No severance, and so they'll stay together, which I think is more interesting, at least. I think it's efficient and effective. And why have those poor people have to the victims' family have to come and twice go through all this crap and maybe get a different ending? No, I think they should. I personally just think it's better that they go together, and that like Kay and Larry Woodcock only have to go through this and Crusha once instead of twice. Why should they be tortured? And then once it's over too, they can finally get the evidence back, which is horrible that their grandchildren's bodies are evidence, but they would like to give them a burial. So that is that. This is our, let's see, 6, 7, 8. This is our 9th, I believe, or maybe 10th. This is the Murdaugh murder case. So Alex has been listening to, he's gotten a little preview of some things with the co-conspirator Russell Lafayette's financial cases of Palmetto State Bank. And a couple things came out in Russell's trial. One really big thing was that there was a big financial fight the night of the murders where the CEO, who was a sister-in-law to Russell's sister's husband, but it's a sister-in-law of Russell's, so that's a little too close for comfort. But she was saying, yeah, I was asking about the books. I was asking about that. Didn't make sense how he was moving money from this, I think it was Chris, the Chris guy, who then, so that was a bombshell, that there was this big blow up about money, and he was getting caught, and then all of a sudden, and he was supposed to have a meeting about it later, soon after that, because they were looking to his finances for the boat crash, and the meeting had to be put on hold but I mean, it wasn't making it go away, so I don't really think that he killed them just to get out of a meeting, because that would be odd. He is now in the position of having to remake his alibi, because in getting ready to go to trial, his lawyers demanded that, they needed to know specifically what the prosecution's theory of when everything happened was, and the prosecution said, yeah, actually it's an hour earlier than we said before. Oh, so Alec was like, yeah, guess what? I have new information about my alibi too. I was on the phone with all these different people. Now, it seems unlikely that Alec is just bluffing or lying about talking to these people because there's going to be phone records, right? Unless he's got some convoluted story and this is the South and this is Alex Murdaugh and maybe he does have a story. So my biggest mean squeeze for this case is obviously Mandy Matney at the podcast, the Murdaugh Murders podcast, but Murdaugh is spelled like Murdaugh if you're trying to look it up. And Alec is really Alex. It's just how they say his name in the South. So the prosecution's moved up things by an hour, and the defense team has now remade their alibi to cover that time period. So yeah, cell phone data, everything that should come out. But it's going to be interesting. Dick Fruitland, state senator, also working very hard to for his client here. We'll see how he does. But Mandy Matney and her journalist buddy pal, Liz Farrell, they're doing a great job, and I highly recommend their Murdaugh podcast. There's an HBO, I haven't watched it yet, the HBO miniseries based on the Murdaugh case, but I would just tell you, I have watched and read everything that Mandy Matney and Liz Farrell have written. I have kept up with the local news, the Post, what are the other ones? I can't believe I can't remember the name of that. Carrier. Is that what, the Post and Carrier? Anyways, there's a couple local Columbia papers that I get a little bit of the news from because I have relatives in South Cackalack. So, yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. We will definitely hear more about Alex. So, we are still drinking our apple pie. Raise a glass to justice. Seems like the good old boy network is not working so well. I just really think it's the stuff that's come out about Alex and the law firm. I've said it before and I'll say it again. How lawyers structure their payments with managing partners, it seems unlikely that some of those managing partners, including Alex's brother, didn't know what was going on with payments because he would have wondered, hey, I know you won that big case, like it was in the news, it was in court, you won, where'd that money go? Because every managing partner gets a piece of what everybody brings in. So those books, and not working out, and Alex's funny money with everybody over at the Palmetto State Bank and whatever was going on with his cousin Curtis Lee and everything Russell Lafitte. There was more going on there, and I think it's more like a Tom Giraldi situation than it is just like, whatever. Something's going on there. All right. I have one more trial case that I will bundle with the Murdaugh case. This is a trial that is still in motion. This is the Piketon County Massacre. George Warden. I'm getting tired, people. George Wagner the Fourth's trial. He is a co-conspirator in the death of the 8 Rodney family. Hannah Rodney, Hannah Mae, then Hannah Gilly, then Chris Jr., Chris Sr., Kenneth, who am I missing? Her mom, Dana. Is that everybody? And then cousin Gary was with Chris Sr. I think that's everybody, 8 people. It was a crazy mass casualty murder that took place in Ohio, in Piketon, Ohio. And the trial is interesting because the biggest shakeup was George it took the stand, and everybody was like, excuse me? Like, it was very unexpected. And from what was said, and I think he allowed himself to be recorded, videotaped and recorded. He opted in. So he's looking like, hey, I'm just going to tell you my story. I ain't hiding nothing. And his voice was it's higher pitched, I guess, than what it looks like it might be, but it was calm. Biggie, Anjanette, and Gigi from Pretty Lies and Alibis have been talking about this case. Biggie's Twitter is at Chasing Paper. It's docket at Chasing Paper 89 for as long as Twitter survives, which was really iffy last Friday. Oh, this past Friday, yesterday? I'm so confused. Yeah, yesterday everybody thought Twitter was ending, but apparently it's not yet. Anyway, but while Twitter exists, you must follow Biggie. He also has a YouTube channel, which I am not remembering right now because on Twitter is where he posts all these documents, and he gives you the raw data is what I would call it, primary sourcing in academia we would call it, which is the good stuff. And Pretty Lies and Alibis, Gigi is the host. She posts a lot on, she's like all over the place. She's just really jamming with this YouTube thing and being a great true crime post. She's definitely with the follow on Twitter and definitely worth her YouTube channel. You must sign up for it. She posts a lot. Most of them aren't very long. They're like one of my single case, the longest is maybe 28 minutes. But she gets right to the point. She's got a great southern accent. You will love to hear her. And she loves trials. She's been following trials since way back. I think she was talking on a recent podcast, one of her recent live, that she followed Jodi Arias was her first case. She actually went to the trial every day. I mean, I have yet to be at a real trial. I've watched them all on TV. I'm obsessively since forever. I mean, since there was court TV, I watched it. I watched all of OJ. I watched, I can't even think of it. I watched all of Casey Anthony, Jodi Arias. If it was on TV, I watched it. But I didn't go. And I will just tell you, Gigi is a great follow on Pretty Lies and Alibis. I depend on her as one of my main screen sources, especially for this Wagner case. She has all of the main players. She's got explains it, and then the trial, it's day by day. You want to do a book on this? She's your source for it. That's how detailed she has been following this case. So highly recommend her. Her review of what happened when George and it took the stand is incredible. She, Biggie, and Angelette. Why can't I say that lady's name? I'm so sorry. She's very, she's attractive, but also isn't that funny? She's attractive and smart, witty, and down to earth. I really like her. So she, Big E, and Gigi all did a live either today or yesterday. Go to Pretty Lies and Alibis, I believe, and look at her lives. She hosted it. You'll be able to find it, and then you can find Biggie and Angeletta, something like that. It's a pretty name, but if I don't look at it, I can't say it. All right, so that is the George Wagner trial. Please please subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you want to notify when I upload. It's once a week, but sometimes the days change, and once in a while I go live. Then we never know what will happen, except it's probably just like this. All right, so I will be right back with a new section. It's true crime, grapevine, all the time. It's a fun time. All right, that's my very bad theme song I'm working on. Let me know if you like it. Put it in the comments below. Also, like and subscribe if you haven't. If you like this, I would appreciate it. All right, so I am on my 12th case, I think. This is the Darrell Brooks sentencing. So Darrell Brooks was the guy who represented himself pro se, which meant speaking for oneself. And he was not deemed, I don't know if he ever said he was mentally incompetent. He had a public defender. He fired a public defender to represent himself and caused all kinds of havoc. Had to be in a separate court system. I don't know, the judge bent over backwards. And I think it's kind of hard to appeal. When you represent yourself, you can't say I had ineffective counsel, which he did have because he was ineffective. But yeah, he received, are you ready for this, on 60 counts of reckless, the crime was the Washtenaw, Wisconsin Christmas parade of last year. Let's see, recklessly endangering the safety of, there was a bunch of people there, so that was 60 counts. He was sentenced to 175 years for each count. That amounted to 762 and a half years, and that was of initial confinement, plus 305 years of extended supervision. Okay. And then on top of that, 6 life sentences. Yeah, so, just, over 1,000 years, give or take. Yeah, I'm sorry, only, 6 life sentences. How many hundreds of years are those? Whatever, he'll be in jail forever. Yeah. But it was very hard to watch. Personally, I couldn't watch it because he got out of control. He was yelling. It was just like, it was like having little things stuck under your fingernails watching him flip out. And every 5 minutes he said, like, he wouldn't answer to his name. And he told the judge, I'm a sovereign citizen. Look up, Google that shit. Hashtag Google that shit. Sovereign citizen. It was insane. Like, he doesn't even agree that the state, like, he wanted to know who was the state, what person. It was just, you guys, he needs to be in a mental institution, I think. Okay. I have another case that's like new. I won't be talking, I don't know if I'll be talking more about it because it's kind of strange because we don't know what's going on. But last week, or earlier this week, if we count this week, right, as like, I think it was Monday, there was a recruit in LA of LA sheriff recruits that were out running, and this SUV comes from the southbound lane, swerves into the northbound lane. It's like, it's daylight, about 6 a.m., plows into these guys who are running. I think there were 75 running. It was a large group, and he injured 25, and 5 of them are critically injured. His name is Nicholas Joseph Gutierrez. Now, right away, he was booked on attempted murder. Nobody died, thank goodness. But, I mean, he was booked on 5 counts of, I think, whatever counts of attempted murder with whatever special stuff of peace officers. And then it was dropped. And I read a long article in the Los Angeles Times, and it took up my last free article. But basically what they said was that due to, and if you've been following like the Lori Vallow case, the people can say they want a speedy trial. If you arraign somebody and that you actually make them plead, not just arrest, but you actually arraign them, which is the pleading, then you have 48 hours to if you charge them, you have 48 hours to arraign them, and then they can ask for a speedy trial, and you only have so long to get that. These are serious charges. A felony, this type of felony murder type charge would, I think they have up to 3 years to the statute of limitations. Statute just means like the rules of limitations, obviously, to limit when you can sue somebody. So the statute of limitations is like 3 years for this type of felony, and they would want to do the most serious. They could undercharge him, like felonious assault, or like using the car. They could do other lower charges, but they said then they're playing a game where he could get just convicted on those, and it's hardly anything. And those lower charges have a faster statute of limitations. So Nicholas Joseph Gutierrez is out right now. He is not charged, but they are looking into him, and likely he will be charged. So the thing is, they have to investigate. It's not like he had a gun and shot at people and they could say it's attempted murder. His car ran into a group of people. They don't, I'm sorry. They're going to have to see, like, especially the telematics of the car. Did it look like he was braking, or did he accelerate into them? Is he claiming he had a medical problem? Does he have a history of passing out? It's going to be a thing. But we will probably hear more of them. But the weird thing, and why I put it with the sentencing of Darrell Brooks, was everybody was talking about Darrell Brooks' sentencing. Everybody was talking about him running into the parade. It's just weird that right at that same time, somebody else does this weird attack. And I don't know, was he looking for attention? Was he triggered by the Darrell? Like, did he get an idea? Who knows? What was his social media like? Was he being influenced to dislike police? People can get radicalized. That is a thing. Be careful about your social media and what you... Nobody thinks they're going to be influenced, and everybody is able to be influenced. When you start getting feelings of anger or really strong reactions of things online, especially from strangers, assume that you are probably being triggered on purpose. United we stand, divided we fall. There's a whole bunch of people who want us divided. You know, there's something to be saying about, well, I want to listen to both sides. But if you're just arguing with people and getting pissed off by, like, they're such idiots, that is not doing you any good. And they might just be bots or trolls that are purposefully looking to divide. You know, and if you listen to enough things that said, these people hate you, these people hate you, you should hate these people, you should, if that becomes a daily diet of that, it can affect how you think. Lori Vallow probably wasn't, she was always like a little kooky and, you know, a little religious and, you know, but she took it to a whole new level when she got involved with whatever whatever, what's that girl's name? You know, the lady with the rainbow things. Julie Rowe and Jason Mao and Melanie Gibb and, you know, Chad. That whole whatever they were selling took it to a whole new level. I mean, I don't know who was, you know, zooming who in that case, but what I'm saying is be careful when you are consuming media that is making you feel very angry, very paranoid, very scared, very sad. It is time to turn on the Hallmark Channel or the Housewives or whatever makes you happy. Read a book. Knit something. Make a quilt. Anything. Just be careful. I would guarantee that if this is purposeful, that Nicholas Joseph Gutierrez has consumed some media that told him to hate police. We have a final judgment in the case that the Petitos brought in Florida, a wrongful death, this was the, what was wrongful death against Brian Laundrie's estate. Now, Scott Reich on the Crime Talk, he said, yes, it's $3 million, but this is a judgment that's mostly symbolic because Brian didn't have anything. Not true. Not true. We found out soon after Brian was dead that he had $20,000. And people were saying, well, then why did he use Gabby's credit card for gas if he had $20,000? If you also remember in the still ongoing lawsuit in Florida, both Petito parents are suing each separately, but suing both of Brian Laundrie's parents, saying that they knew what he had done. They're aware their daughter was dead. They still acted like they hoped that they would be united, but they knew. So that was cruel and unusual to wish good luck finding your kid when you know your kid is dead. And that they gave Brian money to run away. And what do you think that money is? His sudden influx of $20,000 that came out of the blue into his account. So after he was deceased and after they found Gabby and then found Brian, his estate went into probate and his parents filed to get everything that was in his bank account, $20,000, that they probably gave to him, and they're like, yeah, we need that back now. And it was during that time, I think it was December of last year, that the Petitos were starting to get the idea of what they were going to do, and the court, everything was put on hold. They froze those assets because they were disputed. I believe they were disputed at that point. So for whatever reason, and I might be wrong, I have to look back in my notes, but for whatever reason, the Laundries could not get Brian's what he had in his estate. It was just held there. Now, interestingly enough, so they won't get $3 million, but there was a thought I had Brian's parents sold Brian's story at all ever to one of these people that are telling the stories? I don't know. Or if they ever had plans to, because it could be made, the argument could be made that they are making money off Brian's names, ergo it's Brian's estate, even though he has passed away, ergo that money would all go to the Petitos. So this ruling, I believe, also means that if they try to make money off the crime, their son's crime, that I'm hoping what it means is, like, if anything's done in Brian's name, even posthumously, if I read it, if I said it how I read it, posthumously, but I believe you say it posthumously. That's right, dyslexic detective here. After midnight and after just a half a bottle. That's not bad this time. But anyway, yeah. It all the money, any future Brian Laundrie estate monies would then automatically go to the Petitos, and they're going to use it for the Gabby Petito Foundation, which helps interpersonal violence victims and people who are experiencing domestic violence, I believe men or women, to get the help they need to get away from that situation, which I think everybody should want to contribute to and be a part of growing. So Gabby's life, why it was a shining star while she was here, it continues to be that shining example. And I also, I've said this before, and nobody else has said it, but I will say, because Gabby's friend Rose said that Brian couldn't sleep sometimes because he heard voices, and that he was of the age when schizophrenia begins, and he was very paranoid, he was becoming more and more volatile, yelling at Gabby, being unreasonable, yelling at staff at the Mary Piglet. I really think that Brian was devolving and had a mental illness, and I often wonder if his parents knew that, if that's why he went home to see a doctor. And if they sent him back out on the road because he refused to take medicine, or if they knew he was diagnosed and he should be on medicine, but yet he didn't take it, or they didn't even tell Gabby, by the way, he got diagnosed, he needs to take these meds. If that even happened, and that, I am telling you, all my speculation. That is complete speculation. But I'm just saying, it provides a reason for why he heard voices. It also provides a reason why Gabby Petito did not seem to be a woman who would put up with shit like that, as much as she did seem, from what little I know of her, from what I've seen on the blogs and what her parents have said, it did seem to me like she was a person that if somebody she loved was developing weird tendencies, that she wouldn't just dump them and be like, you're a weirdo, goodbye. That she was giving and caring, and she might be the type of girlfriend that would stick around and be like, no, I don't understand why you're acting like this, but let's work this out. I love you. They were engaged. So, she seems like somebody who would have thought, for better or for worse, even starts an engagement, and I don't know why you're acting this way. So whether anybody else, whether he was diagnosed or not, I truly believe he was so interested in that Fight Club, because that's a book about a schizophrenic. People read about what they're trying to figure out in their own life, or about experiences either they've had or are having or want to have. It's bibliotherapy. It's a real thing, people. So, to me, his obsession with those books, his hearing voices, those are all, schizophrenia doesn't happen like you have it. Now you have it and you have it and everybody knows and it's obvious. It evolves over time, and it begins in late teens, early 20s, which Brian was. Anyways, I think people need to know the signs of that too, and know that they need help, that you can't help somebody who is paranoid and combative. They're fighting their own mind. And even if you say that's not really their personality, that doesn't mean you don't protect yourself. And that's just my 2 cents worth. I mean, that is not, I think domestic violence is important, but I also think mental health aspects, they do not cancel out your behaviors. So everything that people warn about domestic violence is accurate, and you should listen to them. I am just saying, especially if it's people around you, you should also look into, do they have a mental illness? It develops around these ages. Girls, it develops like 25 to 30. Girls are developmentally, it seems like it's different. But I am just telling you, men are, I think it's a higher prevalence in men, but definitely it happens right when they're at an age when they're dating. And so know those signs. All right. Know them in your kids. Know them, you know what I mean? Know them who you date. Know them in your family. If you're a worker, when somebody who used to be normal and nice suddenly is combative and paranoid, like we said in our football thing, where that guy, all of a sudden, he's 22, and he starts getting, I don't know, one of the prevalences for developing schizophrenia was having like a very hard upbringing and being, like, I don't know where I'm going with this, probably because it's after midnight. All right, true crime fans, please like, please subscribe. I would very much appreciate to hear your comments. It is going to be December soon. If you have any favorite Christmas or Hanukkah, or I forget what other holidays occur in other religions, or just winter solstice drinks, or just fun holiday drinks that it's like cold season, let me know if you'd like me to theme our next December. It'll be in December almost. We might have one more November left. But I would really love to hear what you have to say. Have a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving. If you don't, have a great rest of your November. Please stay safe. Lock your doors. Don't go into the woods alone. Always take a buddy/witness with you wherever you go. Don't forget to look up, down, and all around your surroundings when you're out and about. And just remember, we have true crime channels. We also have Hallmark and art channels. Don't let it overwhelm you. All right? Okay, people. Bye. True crime, grapevine, long time, all the time.